Hello everyone and welcome to another Watercolor Wednesday. I am Allison with the blog A Glimpse Inside, and today I'm bringing you this spooky haunted house. Not super spooky, but cute. We got a little ghost inside this house with the overgrown grasses and the dead trees and kind of like the moon up here. So it's going to be a fun one. You know, Halloween's around the corner, so why not embrace it, right? So this one we only use 2 markers. That is it. And then we have 3 stamps. So super simple, super quick kind of ish. But yeah, let's get started. So the stamps we're going to use is from the, this is a Bible study or a Bible journal set. And it's the He Leads Me set. And I'm using this tree in this set. There's also a tree set. There are trees in multiple other sets. This tree just worked out for the size of my painting. But if you don't have this one, use whatever you have. And then from the garden shed set, we're going to use this small one right here with the big window. And then, oh, and for this, there's also, again, if you don't have this set, there are tons of houses and cabins and other buildings that you can turn into your little haunted house. And then last is from the original foliage set, the big grasses right there. And then for our colors, we're just doing African Violet number 86 and number 45 Sepia. Again, I use the La Plumes Marvies. If you use Tombos, just use the corresponding ones. And then for this one, I will also be using a Signa broad white pen, Uniball pen. So if you have a white one, and this is just to draw in our ghost. So if you have a some sort of white pen or chalk marker or something, that will be come in handy for this one. And then we will be using some good old Post-it tape. Okay, so this painting is a 4x4 square. You can easily do this bigger if you'd like and add a ton more trees, maybe like a spooky cat or anything of the sorts. But today we're going kind of small and just the 4x4. And we are going to start with our little house. And I'm going to start by inking it up with sepia first. So this entire painting, every stamp is going to get this combo here. So everything is going to be sepia first, followed by the African Violet. So we get that deep grayish black. If you have a black Tombow, I mean, you can use it. I didn't experiment with it, so I'm not sure how well you would get, but I wanted kind of to be able to get a couple different color variations, so that's why I decided to do this combo, this tried and true combo, and that way I can get something a little more brown, a little more purple, whichever works. So it's all stamped up. I'm going to ink it kind of towards the bottom center, and just to leave room for my moon and some trees. Okay, there we go. So, before I do anything else with the house, we are going to try to paint in our sky here. I wanted to put the house in first, so I knew where it was, and I didn't have that color behind it. But I want the color behind the trees, and you see here in my sample, I accidentally stamped this tree before this little area of the paper was dry. See, I still make mistakes. So this kind of bled. I could have done more with it, and I just decided to leave it for now. I'll come up with something. Maybe I'll add a bird to it, but on my palette, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of African Violet. Get my brush nice and wet, and I'm just going to try to eyeball where I want my moon. I'm just going to kind of go center above the, or a little off center above the house, and I'm just going to kind of paint a circle. And if I want more water, I'm just going to add more water, and I'm just going to keep going. if you get too good of a line right there, just go right back over it with a watery brush. And you can soften that. I'm going to try to get it to go a little darker as I work my way away from the moon. Because obviously like the brightness of the moon is kind of fading out. And then, let's see here. And I'm just going to start kind of dabbing to give my little shape here of the sky. Just so I can see get some texture. Come down to the roof of the house here, but I'm not going to try to touch it. And I'm going to come down just a little bit next to the house. Okay. Don't have to make this solid. You can paint it in more, whatever. So I kept going over, sorry, my video stopped and I didn't realize it. So keep going over your sky. You can add tons of texture the more you go over and kind of dot. For my moon, I didn't like the pure shape of it. It was kind of awkward and small. So I took a super clean brush with just water and went over until I had the moon that I want. And then I just took a paper towel and dabbed it to get the excess paint off. So if your moon turns out to be kind of a wonky shape, just feel free to do that. And then, or you could draw it in with a pencil if that makes you feel more comfortable. I just like to wing it, and then I can just kind of fix it here. So I'm just going to kind of go around the outside just to give it a little more definition. And then before we're done with the painting overall, we can do it right now. I'm just going to kind of add a couple little spots into the moon, since the moon has those obviously deeper craters from Earth. And then that way it just kind of gives a little, it kind of looks like a smiley face, doesn't it? It's got a nose. Let's change that up a little bit. Still looks like a smiley face. Yeah, it's okay. I'll put a tree high above there. Okay, so before you move on to your trees, like I stated in this one, you want to make sure your background is completely and utterly dry. So if you kind of hold your paper towards the light, you can see what's still wet. And if you can see like right here, that's all shiny. So that section is still wet. So you can either, two options. If you're dry, you can go ahead and move on and you can stamp in your trees, which is what I did here. I moved on and I started stamping in my trees, and then, oh look, my background was still wet. If that's what you do, you're going to want masking tape to cover this up. If your background is still wet, which actually I think mine finally dried, go ahead and do your house first, or just wait a minute, you know, fan it around. They dry super fast. But since I'm just going to shake mine real fast, and then we're going to go ahead and do the trees, because why not? So I used this a couple times already. This is just my Post-it tape that I kind of tore into multiple pieces here to fit into the house, or to cover the house. So I'm covering the house completely because I want those trees, some trees coming up from behind. If you have a tree that like with the branches that kind of overlap in front of the house, what I did on a different painting, I had one branch that came in front, but since I had the Post-it tape, it obviously didn't show. So I just threw it back in. Easy peasy. So again, we're going to do our same stamping combo. Sepia first. followed by African Violet. And normally when I would use this tree, I would stamp it like 2 or 3 times before I would re-ink it, just to give like a couple dimensions of the trees. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to re-ink it every time because I want those trees nice and dark. So we're going to start with this one. We're going to tuck him over here. Okay. And then again, so, I mean, you don't have to be exact when you reapply, because there is still ink on it, but okay. And then I'm going to tuck this guy, I think, on this side of the house to start. All right. And then I'm going to pop 1 or 2 behind the house, so. And I'm actually going to wipe off the bottom of the trunk here because I don't want it to accidentally be a little too long for my house. So I'm just going to wipe off. There's kind of a line right here. I'm just going to wipe off from that line down. And then we're going to pop these above the house. And this one, I am just going to go ahead and stamp the second one. Okay, so there are our trees. And now we can, so this tree looks like the trunk actually should have continued to right down here. So I'm going to add that in so it's just not a floating tree. So I just drew first with the thin side of sepia, and then I just added it in with the African Violet. And since I didn't go over the stamp one last time, if anything's just a little too light, I'm just going to kind of touch it. All right. So now it is time to paint in our house and then our trees. Okay, so I'm going to start with my trees. And I'm going to add some more African Violet and then put some sepia on my palette here. And I'm going to do the normal kind of mix here to get that gray gray mixture. And then I'm going to brush in my trees first. So again, I want these on the little bit darker side. I don't recommend going over any of the lines that are super small. But if there's space in between the branches, just paint those in. So this will take a couple coats to get them kind of as dark as I would like them to be a little more silhouette-y. But that's okay. So I'm just going to kind of go over them here a couple times, and then we'll move on to our house and come back to them if we need to. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for now with the trees. I'm going to let them dry and come back. Okay, so for the house, I'm just going to kind of drag some color for the roof here. I'm not really going to paint too much onto the roof. I'm just going to kind of drag these colors out of the lines. And then I'm just kind of scatter it a bit. Brush was a little too wet. And then I'm going to leave more of a highlight at the very top of the roof, kind of like where the moon would be shining on it. It's kind of hard to see. And then I'm going to come right under this line, kind of drag this color down for like a shadow. I'm going to paint in this ledge right there of the window. And then again, anything that's left, I'm just gonna kind of pull this color and I'm gonna fade it as it gets more towards the bottom. And then I'm gonna kind of drag some of this color out from under the window. But this side is gonna be a little bit brighter. I'm gonna make this side of the house pretty dark. So for the roof, I'm gonna kind of like what I did with the window over here. Paint this in more or less, and then I want a pretty good shadow, like right where it would be underneath the roof, and then down this far end of the house here. We have a little door, not molding, but I'm not sure what word I'm going for. Indentation there. And then I'm going to bring this color down, and then as it meets this corner, I'm going to kind of leave this corner as a highlight. It's really hard to see right now. So we're just going to kind of go over and add some more color to keep making this darker and darker until we get that haunted-y house that we're looking for. You can do just more African violet. But it will turn more of like that purpley colors. So that's why I like to mix it with that sepia. So it's not quite so purple blue. Okay, so again, I'm just going to keep going over this side over here, and I want this side of the house to be darker, so just keep going right under my roof, kind of under the window, and then in these sections. Okay, so if you want, you can add a little bit more if you have some color on your brush, kind of like for some shadowy effects. Maybe the branches are kind of leaving a more of a shadow onto the roof, so you can add a little more there. Okay, so now that my trees are kind of dry for a minute, I'm going to add some more of this to my trees, kind of deepen them up here. They're not going to be completely filled in, and that's fine. Okay, so for the door, I'm actually going to just start with just a coat of sepia for the door. And I'm going to let that kind of sit and dry for a minute. We're going to kind of go over that door quite a few times too. And then for the window itself, I want a pretty watered down brush, kind of like what we did here for the sky. And I'm going to pretty much give that full window a really light coat of paint, and I'll let that dry. So while that dries, I'm going to come back to my door. So again, I want this to be darker, but I want that brown to kind of pop through. So I did just add some sepia to it. And then I'm going to kind of go, or African violet, and I'm going to go back over it with sepia again, and then African violet. I'm just going to kind of rotate it through. And then come back to my trees. This is just a lot of layering this time. Okay, so my window is dry now. So I'm going to come back And it doesn't have to be quite so watered down this time. And then I'm just going to kind of go on the outside here. And I don't want to fill in the center all the way, because that's where my little ghost is going to go. And so I'm just going to leave that center with that first initial coat on it. And then I'm going to let it dry. And I'm going to just kind of keep coming over it with the African Violet, just to deepen up that color. And then after it kind of dries, I'm going to go back with the mix to really give it a good deep hue here. So let's see. I'm going to, while that inside dries, I'm going to take the thin end of my African Violet here. I'm going to kind of go darken up some of these lines. I'm going to darken that, what am I trying to say? That recess. I'm going to come through here, darken up our window. I'm just going to redraw this line of the roof. And then same thing here. Just kind of really make that dark. And then I'm going to add some lines into our tree trunks here. And then for the tree trunk lines, I'm going to go back with just a little bit of the sepia. So if I touch water to it, I get that mixture. Okay, so our window's dry. This painting's a lot of just bouncing around. So now I'm going to make that mixture for this coat. And paint that in there. You don't have to like cover it completely. I just want, like, you know, it's a dark house with then the ghost peering out looking at you. Okay, I think that's good and dark now. So I'm gonna just give a quick touch to these areas of my tree that I added color to. And then just a little bit under my roof, I added those lines. Okay, so we're gonna add our grasses now. And the grass, again, is the same exact way that we've inked everything else. So sepia, followed by African Violet, and then just scatter this grass throughout. So I'm going to put some kind of closer to us here for that tree. I'm going to cover up the house. So this one I am going to stamp a couple times before I reapply the ink. I'm okay if the grasses have a little bit more dimension to them and aren't quite so blocky. So I'm going to put one kind of like in front of this corner and then towards the back of the house there, near the front of this tree. You can add as much or as little of this grass as you want. I'm going to kind of add a couple more here. I'm going to add something down low and be like through here. Okay. And then I am going to take my little mixture here. We're just going to kind of make like we have like a little path coming out from the house. Gotta get there somehow, right? Okay, so I'm dipping my brush in water. Keep dripping water. And then I'm going to just brush that grass up and out to make it even longer and wispier, kind of up in front of the window, up over the house. So you just follow the lines and just kind of how they're going here. Makes it a little spookier. You know, those houses that you look and you're like, It's clearly no one has lived in that house for a long time. Okay, so then I am going to just, right at the base of these, I'm just going to kind of draw some color out in a way, just a little bit. And then again, that will kind of be like a shadow from the moonlight, kind of reflecting off those tall leaves here. Tall blades of grass, bushes, whatever you want them to be. And that way they get a little bit of dimension. Okay, so last thing will really be our ghost. And if you want, you can actually take your white pen here and you can add some lines back into your moon. Since I said mine looks a little smiley face-ish. They're kind of hard to see, but if you look closer there. Okay, so for my ghost, I'm just gonna, he's gonna be a generic little ghost symbol here. You know, with the big body. And then some outstretched arms. I'm not sure how else to really do a ghost in a window. I'm going to let him dry for just a minute. And while he dries, I'm going to kind of come back here on my trees. Just to kind of draw in a couple extra branches. You don't have to do this. I just want to kind of add a little bit more whimsy. It'd be super cute. You can add like a bird into the trees, maybe, you know, and paint him all black. My husband suggested I put like one little orange pumpkin for a pop of color, but I didn't want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to try to get him to dry really quickly because we have to add a face. It can't just be a white figure looking at you. I mean, it could. But why? That's no fun. So let's see. This pen takes a little bit longer to dry than watercolors. Okay. So once it's dry, you're just gonna do with your sepia, African violet tip, which you can go back over it, and you're just gonna add like the eyes and the mouth, and that's it. And I am going to go back over, I think, with sepia just to make that a little darker. And there you go, our little fun Halloween. I'm gonna maybe, let's see here. I think I got some pen on my marker. Let's see if I can get it to work. I'm going to sign and date it over here. And there is our fun little Halloween scene. You know, again, you can make it bigger. Maybe add a Happy Halloween stamp to it and turn it into a card. You can just frame it up if you are one of those people that love Halloween. That is not me. I have not been a Halloween person pretty much all my life. But if you are, this would be super cute in a frame, sitting on a shelf, or like amongst all of your other Halloween decor. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I think I may play around and do a couple variations of these, so you may see something similar to this again in the following weeks, but we'll see. But I hope you have an awesome Wednesday and rest of your week, and I will see you next week. Bye.